Hi, I'm Dr. Beth Greene with New Life Chiropractic here in Haverhill. On today's show, I'm going to talk about weight, weight loss, weight management. Most of us, myself included, have been challenged in this area, or certainly have a loved one who is struggling with weight problems. I'm excited to have a guest with me today who is willing to share his journey of getting healthy and share how he has lost over 100 pounds. My purpose is to offer hope and inspire others that no matter where you are right now and how overweight you are, there is a way to make changes and get results. Before I introduce my guests, I want to go over a few alarming facts. An estimated 160 million Americans are either obese or overweight. Nearly 3/4 of American men and more than 60% of women are obese or overweight. There are also major challenges for our children in America. Nearly 30% of boys and girls under the age of 20 are either obese or overweight. This is up 19% from 1980. So when looking at obesity alone, there are more obese adults living in America today than in any other country in the world. Obesity is associated with a multitude of other health issues, such as sleep apnea, stroke, heart disease, diabetes, blood pressure, high cholesterol, fatty liver, arthritis, cancer, and lung disease. The estimated annual medical cost of obesity in the U.S. was $147 billion, and that was in 2008. That was 10 years ago. We are one of the wealthiest countries in the world, and yet we are on the bottom when it comes to our health. We are clearly not on the right path. So I'm here to try to shift that path a little bit. So I'd like to introduce my guest. This is Damian Ryan from Haverhill. He is one of my favorite chiropractic patients. And as I got to know him and hear his story and his journey, which is incredible, I wanted others to hear it as well so that he can possibly motivate others to make some changes in their life. So thank you so much, Damian, for being here. I really appreciate it. So I'm going to start off by just asking you a few questions, and we have so much to talk about, so we have to certainly narrow it down. So just let us know, kind of where your journey started, or at least maybe your weight struggle started, and then from there. So if you want to start with that, yeah, no, thank you.
So my weight struggle started early on in life.
Okay.
When I was in grade school, I was overweight, and by the time I was in junior high, I was referred to as husky, which was the euphemism of the time for being overweight. At the end of my junior high years, my dad passed away, and that was a really tough situation for me. And I started eating as a way to deal with that situation. So I basically went from 150 pounds that summer, and by the following summer, I weighed 217, which is just a huge amount of weight to have gained in a short period of time. And I didn't understand it until recent years, actually, what was going on. But that was very traumatic for me to lose him, and that was how I was dealing with grief and sadness and depression,
kind of
relating to that, filling the void.
Yep.
And we all need to eat, and food tastes good, so
Yes.
it's just that it accelerated out of control. So basically, most of my life since that point in time, I was morbidly obese.
Gotcha. All right. And so I guess fast forward a bit, and that I guess it was a health crisis, perhaps,
Right.
that you had that maybe, opened up your eyes a bit.
Right.
Yes. So tell us about that.
So as I approached middle age, my weight problems got worse. And when I would go for my annual checkup, I was starting to get more serious warnings that I was going to run into some serious medical issues if I didn't change my ways and try and drop some weight, try and get some exercise.
And how did you respond to those warnings?
And I just thought that this just not, it's not going to happen to me. It's
Right.
just, you know, there was no diabetes in my family.
Right.
So I just completely dismissed that.
Yeah.
And
Thought you were invincible.
right, thought I was invincible and thought I had a lot of stress in my life, which I did. And so I was entitled to be able to eat the way I wanted to.
Okay.
And I didn't want somebody telling me what to do.
Who does?
Yeah.
That's right.
So it got to the point in early 2014 where my weight was the worst it had ever been at 400 pounds, a little bit over that. And I was watching TV one night and sitting on the floor, and my foot was asleep, and I was, you know, massaging it and squeezing it, and it didn't wake up. And the next morning when I woke up, it was worse, and more of my foot and part of the other foot was that tingling sensation of being asleep. And I got up and was walking around my apartment, and it didn't wake up. And within 2 weeks, I had lost all the feeling in both of my feet from my ankles down, and on my right hand, the lower part of my right hand. So I did go running to my health care provider to see what was going on. She pretty much had an idea, so she rushed through an A1C test, which is a blood sugar, a very precise blood sugar test. And she rushed the results back, sat down and talked to me, and told me that she didn't know how she could possibly be sitting talking to me because the A1C level, which was way into the double digits, was so disastrous that I should have actually been in a coma, or
Like a diabetic coma.
yeah, or diabetic coma, or not even be around. And it started to hit me, wow. So because I had had an A1C test, I think 3 months before when I had seen her, and it was borderline diabetic. So in the 3 months, it had more than doubled, which was pretty
Just
serious.
very rapidly.
Right, very rapid progression.
Right.
But it meant that I was in diabetic ketoacidosis, which basically means my body had stopped functioning and was shutting down.
Right.
And what she said was right, and it shook me up. But I still had a certain amount of defiance, and I said to her, she had told me I needed to go in the hospital right away, not even to go home after work, just that was it.
Right.
And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And I didn't. And part of it was my whole process in life of not wanting somebody to tell me what to do. But I had another reason, and all I had going for me at the time was my dog, who I absolutely adored, and I'd had him for 15 years. He'd been in great health, and a couple months before this, his health started to decline to the point where I knew he wasn't going to last much longer. And so all I could think of when she told me about that was, I didn't want him to die with me being gone already and being with a stranger. So that was my motivation, or the reason why I wouldn't get the medical treatment. So that was the turning point. I listened to a couple of things that she said. One was about changing my diet. And my standard dinner, because I was real stressed from work, I'd go home, I'd open up a pound box of spaghetti, cook that, load it with sauce and lots of butter and lots of cheese, no vegetables. That would be my dinner. So she talked to me about that. So my change to that was I switched from a pound box of spaghetti to a 12-ounce box of whole wheat spaghetti. And I thought, I'm eating healthy now.
Right.
And she also told me—
you had no idea.
I had no
really,
idea.
what you were
I
doing.
knew nothing about nutrition.
Right.
Growing up, there just wasn't a focus on it.
Right.
My dad was very overweight. We didn't eat a lot of vegetables. We ate a lot of, like a lot of other people, we ate a lot of processed foods.
Yep.
And I was never athletic, so I had nothing to counterbalance that. I wasn't getting any kind of exercise.
Right.
And I was, because of the problem with my feet, I was falling a lot, including at work, and it was causing some problems there because they're not always sympathetic about things like that at work, and they were telling me that, you know, something needed to happen because other employees were getting upset, and on and on and on. They didn't seem too concerned about me, but anyway. So my nurse practitioner told me that I needed to start doing something physical, and so what we came up with, because there was a gym in my building, was for me to get on the treadmill and just try and walk on the treadmill for 5 minutes a day for a month. And my balance was so bad I had to hold the side rails at all times, or I'd go sliding right off of the treadmill. But
well, you couldn't feel your feet.
I couldn't feel my feet.
So that was the problem.
So I'd have to look. Right.
The, you know, neuropathy.
Neuropathy, diabetic neuropathy.
So and you still can't feel your feet, right?
I still can't feel my feet.
So it's hard to believe, but yes, that's all you've done. So so.
And the other thing that was going on that was really risky is that I live in an old loft building with concrete floors, and when I would get up in the morning, which I'd done my whole life, I'd put my feet out over the bed and wait for the feeling of my feet touching the floor so I could stand up, but it would never happen. So I would just pitch over forward onto the concrete floor every day, because you do things by rote in life, and when you're still half asleep, you don't stop to think, oh, I have to be careful. So, so I did start working on the treadmill, and I stayed with it for my 5 minutes. And one day, when I was in the gym, I had a neighbor named Chris who lived down the hall, and he was in the gym working out with a friend of his. And his friend was telling him to do a number of things so that he could increase his strength, and this would accelerate his process for building muscle and so on. I thought, oh, this is kind of interesting. I don't know anything about this stuff, but I decided I didn't really want to hear it, so I started focusing on TV again. And so 2 days later, I ran into them again in the gym, and I started to hear what this guy was saying about working out. And I thought, I think this guy could really help me out. I didn't know him, didn't know who he was. So I got off the treadmill and went over and interrupted their workout and talked to this guy whose name is Tim Morris. And I looked at him and said, would you be my trainer? And he looked at me like, who are you? So we decided to set up a meeting for a couple days later. That was a Friday, and we decided to meet Sunday evening. So we sat and talked, and Tim did an assessment on me and told me that before he would work with me, I had to promise to give up soda. That was the first step I had to take.
How much soda you were drinking?
I was drinking over 2 liters a day of soda, being a diabetic, because I don't like the taste. Sugar soda. I didn't like the taste of the diet soda, so I thought it was healthier to drink regular soda than the diet with the chemicals in it. So I said, okay, I will, and I actually really meant it, because I had this feeling that this guy could really help me out, and I really wanted it to work. So I actually did stop drinking soda. I had some upstairs when we were talking, and I poured it down the drain when I got upstairs. I did caffeine withdrawal. I actually
sugar,
had
sometimes the sugar
and
withdrawal.
probably sugar too. And I had never actually had a cup of coffee in my life, and so we talked about it, and I started having a cup a day of coffee, and I learned that actually that is quite helpful for maintaining blood sugars. Not to go overboard with coffee, but having a little bit is actually a good regulator. Right. So I drink black coffee. So that's my substitute.
And the interesting thing as well about your trainer is that he's in a wheelchair.
That's right.
Yeah.
Tim's paraplegic, and he has a T4 spinal fracture, and he's paralyzed from here down.
Yes.
So that was very interesting.
Yes.
And I thought about it after the fact, and so part of the assessment that we did when I first met with him was that he asked me to walk across the gym floor, because I had told him about my balance issues, and that was really the top priority, because I couldn't do anything with weights, being unstable on my feet, or run or anything like that. It would have been too dangerous. So he wanted, he has a master's degree in kinesiology, which is how the body moves, and asked me to walk across the gym floor so he could assess my abilities. And I said, I can't. And he said, why not? I said, because I'm going to fall over. And he goes, just do it. So I started walking across the floor, and I fell down. And I looked at him and I said, I told you I can't do it. And he said, get up and keep walking. So I did, and I fell down again. The same thing, he told me to keep going. I got up and fell down again, and I started crying, and I said, I can't do this. And he said, get up and finish walking to the wall like I told you to do. And I did. And I was the person that wouldn't listen to anybody's advice my whole life. But I trusted this person, and I had a feeling that if I did what I was told, it would make things better. And so that was a real turning point in my life.
And that was 2014?
That was January 2015.
Oh, wow. So just 3 years ago.
Yeah, just three and a half years ago.
Yeah. And so, so was the weight loss slow, or how did that?
It
so,
was.
I mean, that was you were concentrating on your balance and the physical
On balance
part.
at first, yeah.
And obviously, you were concentrating on getting your blood sugars lower too.
Getting blood sugars down, yeah.
So.
And I had started taking some diabetes medications.
Of course, yeah.
And Tim had a certification in nutrition, so he was really great and really sensitive to my needs because I'm vegetarian, and that had always been a stumbling block when I would go to my traditional healthcare provider, and they'd say, well, you need to forget about that for now, and and have chicken or whatever they were suggesting. So he tailored it to meet my needs, even though he didn't know a lot about vegetarianism at the time. So he felt like he got educated as well, and so I felt like he was invested in me, and so I really worked to make it work because I just wanted it to, and so the weight started to come off faster, and I started to be able to do more in our training sessions, and things started to accelerate. And I never had an athletic moment in my life, and it was just unbelievable to me. So work with somebody who was so strong and do something, achieve something. So and then I was sending him a message one night on Facebook, and I saw some pictures on his Facebook page, which turned out to be a Spartan Race. And I had no idea what a Spartan Race was. It's an obstacle course race, because some people might not know what it is. A super intense one.
Challenging one.
Right.
Yes.
And Tim was on this team, and despite his limitations, he did Spartan races. And the pictures were just so amazing to me, and I was like, wow. So for a few weeks, I would look at the pictures when they got posted, and because sometimes we'd have to change our training time because he needed to go to a race. And I finally got up my nerve to ask him if they had a men's over 50 division for Spartan, and he said, no, everybody races together. And he said, are you thinking about it? And I said, well, it looks pretty interesting to me. He goes, I don't think you'd really like it because you get really sweaty and you get covered with mud, and it's pretty tough. And I thought, oh, that's the last thing I want to do is be covered with mud. But I thought, my stubbornness came back. I'm not going to let him get my goat. And I said, that wouldn't bother me at all. So he said, really? And I said, yeah. I said, I'd really be interested. So he said, well, let's shift the focus of training to get you ready for the Fenway Park Spartan Race, which was 6 months in the future. So that became the goal of goals in my life. I never have worked so hard for anything. And I was so far from being able to do it 6 months out, and I did it.
Nice. Yes. And we were talking before, too, is that, the whole experience, you weren't an athlete, you weren't part of a team, and then very often that provides support and camaraderie and things like that, so you didn't have that.
Right.
And so here you are, did the Spartan Race, which is a team.
Right.
And you said you had, these superior athletes, I don't know, for lack of a better word. So,
We have some really amazing athletes on my team, which is Team Believe 923.
Yes, exactly. So.
People that are in national championships. Before his accident, Tim had been a super athlete, all through high school and college. I mean, these guys are really serious athletes. Right,
and yet you're on their team and they're helping you.
Yeah.
And they want you to succeed.
They welcome me right from the start, and they help me to get through that first race, and my heart was just pounding. It was just completely.
Now, this still blows my mind. All while you still have no feeling in your feet.
No feeling in my feet.
So you just have to relearn how to, like a stroke victim, how to just run and walk and retrain your,
Totally.
brain and your body.
Yeah, totally had to relearn.
Yeah, so that still blows my mind to this day, that you do all these things with that too. But that was certainly important probably in your journey as well, because in my opinion, especially when you're really in a health crisis and a lot of weight on you, you really need help and support. It's just too overwhelming to do it all by yourself. Yeah. So that's, I wanted to offer people too, that you happen to, fate brought you and this trainer together, but everybody has to find their Tim, or everybody has to find their team, because it is overwhelming. And I just think that's when people give up.
Oh, exactly.
They give up and then they say, oh, it's too hard, I can't do it. But if you have support, any success in life, even for pro athletes, it's never like this. This and now they have an injury and they fall and they have to take a break and then they start again and then they rehab and so but nobody talks about that. Right. They only see this.
Right.
Yeah, so.
And that's really true. And when I was needing to lose 200 pounds, as the years went by, it was just overwhelming to me.
Of course.
And I mean, I did know on one level I needed to lose weight, and it would be a good thing to lose weight, and it was expensive to be buying new clothes all the time. Mm-hmm. But to think about losing 200 pounds, it's just impossible. Right. You have to set a more reasonable goal. And so basically, when I had the goal of just staying alive, then that was helpful. Yes. And then when I had the race goal for Fenway, I was still concerned about losing weight, but I had something that was fun to focus on, and that made it a goal, and that I never had that, and I never knew what it was like to be on a sports team. I never played sports, and I never let people help me with anything in life, and it was really tough for me to change. I liked it. There was a part of me that really felt good, and to be interacting. And
now, do you mind me asking, how much weight are you down total now, if you know?
I'm down just about 200 pounds.
Congratulations.
I'm close to 200 pounds right now.
Wow, that's amazing.
So I'm near my goal. I want to be
under 200. And then how long did that take you about?
3 years, maybe? 3.5.
3.5 years.
A little over 3.5.
So that's important for people to realize it can happen, but you need to give it some time.
Right. You have to give it some time.
Yep. And you're going to have plateaus, and you're going to have ups and downs, and you're going to have hiccups.
Right. I've been having some plateaus lately, and I've heard other people say these last pounds I need to lose, they're the toughest, because I've been accomplishing a lot, and part of me is just like, this is okay right now. Right. I am going to take it off because I'm very interested in the races that I do, and I'll do a lot better when I do get to my goal weight. So I still have that as an incentive. Yes. So that's a really, really big deal.
Exactly.
And the other thing I wanted to mention is, which I didn't say before, I did start taking medication for diabetes because my sugar level was so disastrous. And so I was having to go to my provider a lot because I was in such rough shape. Yeah. And after I started working with Tim, she started to notice that month by month, the A1C was dropping dramatically. Nice. So at a certain point, she said, let's just try off of medication. Right. And so I went off the medication, and it didn't go back up, and it continued to drop. So diet and exercise can really make a huge difference.
Yeah, and all those things I mentioned, all the diseases it can obesity can cause, diet and exercise can actually reverse. Right. Reverse laws. And even though you still don't have feeling in your feet, we can still, you just never know. Your body's a self-healing, in chiropractic we teach, your body's meant to heal itself. You just never know.
Things could change.
Things can change and things like that, but it's still amazing. And recently, I just want to share with the audience, I know we don't have a lot of time, is that, he just ran a marathon.
Right. At age 60, I ran my first marathon.
So that's
it was
amazing.
A really tough one.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a mountain marathon in Vermont called Infinitus, and it was my biggest challenge ever in life, and it was very exciting to cross that finish line.
And I just think that, again, you inspire me because you're always choosing another goal. That's important in life. Even if it's not about weight loss. It's like you just can't be complacent, Right. You meet something and say, okay, let's challenge myself. You meet something, let's challenge, whatever it may be. Right. And so I think that's why, you're really inspiring too.
Oh, thanks.
I had another question for you. If you could, give one piece of advice to someone that's needs, I need to lose 80 pounds, 100 pounds, 200 pounds. I don't know. What do you think you could offer those people out there sitting there watching? Yeah.
Yeah, I guess what I would say is when you're in that situation, it seems like food is your best friend, but it really isn't. And
that's good.
there's so much pressure on us about losing weight that, of course, everybody's thinking about the big number. I need to lose 150. And it just doesn't work that way. And just think about 1 pound. Just 1 pound. If you lose 1 pound in a couple weeks, that's great. That's a start. And then you lose another pound. And then it's like a snowball down the hill. It starts accelerating, and you don't have to think about it as much. Your eating habits change, and the weight starts coming off, and the struggle gets a little easier to get the weight off. But you can't think about the total all at once. I think that really sets you back.
It's like keeping in the current day and the current moment.
Keeping in the moment about it,
and just say, okay, what can I do today?
What can I do today?
Yeah.
Sometimes it might be just, I'm going to stay away from this particular food. It's unhealthy for me, and that's the success of the day. So.
Right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Dr. Beth.
I thank you so much for being my very first guest on my show. I can't thank you enough for sharing your story, and I'm sure you've inspired others out there. And if you would like more healthy tips on health, nutrition, chiropractic, you can certainly visit my website, which is newlifechiropractic.net. And certainly if you have any questions, you can contact me through the website. There's an email button on there, and I would be happy to answer any and all of your questions. So until next time, I'm Dr. Beth Greene with Healthy Living.